Oh, I really needed that. So I'm sitting out here in my garden. When I say my, I really mean my grandparents. For the last 2 years, I've spent more time in France than I have in Britain. Ironically, the pandemic's supposed to stop people from travelling, but in my case, I've actually travelled more than ever during the pandemic. While I was in France, I noticed some very weird things from a British perspective. And as I was there, I made these notes of all these things that were different. And I thought it would make an interesting video topic, so here we are. So the first thing that I noticed in France is obviously the bakeries. The bakeries in France are basically famous anyway, and the food in them is absolutely delicious. I once brought my French girlfriend to a bakery in the UK, and she was massively disappointed. And she said that the supermarket ones are actually better than the bakery ones in the UK, because the ones in the bakeries in the UK are so bad. But in France, they're absolutely phenomenal. So in a supermarket, a baguette is still going to cost almost the same as it will in a bakery, because they have such high taxes on the supermarket produce, because they want to keep the bakeries protected effectively. So even during the lockdown, all of the bakeries and small vendors were like some of the most active businesses still because of the protections. And everybody in France gets to get their bread from the bakery, not from the supermarket. While in the UK, you're tending just to get everything from the supermarket. Speaking of food, there's a lot of other things I noticed in France about food. So the first one is that in France, they're obsessed with pasta. We had EF students even before I went to France, and we had them from all over the world, but some of them were from France, and they were always obsessed with pasta. And I always thought it was a bit extreme. Pasta and Nutella. But when I was actually in France, I realised they all eat pasta as well. Like the family I was staying with would have pasta at least 3 or 4, maybe even 5 times a week sometimes. It's mad. It's like their go-to meal is just pasta. While in the UK, I guess, maybe not across the board, but we tend to have a bit more variety, potatoes, rice, and other starchy foods, not just pasta. But in France, they usually focus just on having the pasta, which is crazy. The other big thing about food in France is they have 4 meals a day, which is really weird for me, because in the UK, we only have 2 meals a day. I usually just have breakfast and dinner, and occasionally we'll have like a quick snack for lunch or something. But in France, that's really not the case. They just eat 4 meals a day. They have like breakfast, they'll have lunch, they'll have a snack in the afternoon, and they're going to have dinner. But the difference is they have dinner at like 8 p.m, while in the UK we have dinner in the early evening, 5 or 6 p.m. There's other things I noticed. So for one, in the UK, barbecues are better. I have to say one thing we do way better is barbecues. We tend to, we have burgers, we have hot dogs, sausages, chicken, ribs, we have all sorts of things at barbecues. While in France, they tend to they might have chicken, or maybe sausages on their own, but they don't have hot dogs and they don't have burgers. Well, they have them, but normal French people won't get them for a barbecue. While in the UK, we think, oh yeah, and we have specific things quite often, but in France, they have very different things when they have a barbecue. But generally, I think barbecues are more enjoyable in the UK. Another thing which was really traumatic for me is in France, there is no bacon. Sort of. So we don't have bacon in terms of like English bacon, the nice bacon with the nice meaty bit and the fat that goes around the edge. And obviously in America they have streaky bacon. In France they have neither. They do have gammon, like gammon steaks. And they also have like lardon, which is kind of like gammon cut into cubes or little tiny strips. But mainly they use that for like making carbonara or making other foods. They don't just have lardon on their own. They mix it with other things. However, a tip for any English people who do live in France, if you're lucky enough to live in Paris, lucky or unlucky, depending how you look at it, they do have this thing called M&S. So if you're British, you know what M&S is. They have 11 M&S stores dotted through Paris in things like subways, major train stations, and things like this. They're kind of like Tesco extras. They're not like big supermarkets, but they're little sort of corner stores. But they always do English products, including like English milk and English bacon and things like this. So you can get some English products if you live in Paris, but it's kind of expensive. You're probably looking at about €7 for about 12 rashers of bacon, which is obviously like a lot more than the UK. But of course, M&S bacon's probably expensive even in the UK, but that's the only option you have if you're in France. Another thing I noticed is I've been in France for Christmas now, and their Christmas dinner is absolutely nothing like the UK. So to begin with, they don't have turkey or any of the meats we have. They don't have turkey or beef or anything. And they actually had things like strips of salmon and oysters and clams and lots of strange things you wouldn't think as being Christmassy. And don't even start on Yorkshire puddings. There is nothing like that there. So it really doesn't feel like the sort of English Christmas you're going to be used to in terms of the food that they're eating. But they do have lots of wine and stuff as well. So, I mean, it's still enjoyable. It's just really, really different. So something else I want to move on to, I'm going to go on to supermarkets and I'm going to go on to restaurants. Very briefly, restaurants, the foods in restaurants in France are really, really good. You can get good food in England too, of course. But in France, there's something I want to say about the meat, because the meat in France, you'll notice this. When I went to France for the first time, basically the waiter came up to our table, and when I ordered my steak, I ordered it like medium rare. And he basically said, the English do not know how to eat their meat. And my response was, no, we know how to cook it. And that's certainly true. So if you go to a restaurant in the UK and ask for a medium rare steak, it's probably going to be a little bit closer to medium. But if you do it in France, it's going to be closer to rare. So you've got to be aware that in France, they undercook your meat, and in the UK, they're probably going to overcook it. So the next thing is supermarkets. So in France, they don't tend to have lots of big supermarkets. Like in the UK, we have supermarkets, but we have quite a lot of them. Like where I live on the Isle of Wight, we have at least 5 major supermarkets. They're not absolutely massive, but they're reasonably big. But in France, they tend to have less of them, but when they do, they have like hypermarkets, and they're absolutely massive. So they have lots of little markets like Tesco Extra basically everywhere, but the hypermarkets are huge. Obviously, I only have the experience of living where I lived in Paris, and we went to a hypermarket Carrefour in I think it was Cergy. I think it was called Cergy or something like this. It's a town over, yeah, but basically it's absolutely massive. And in the UK, like, we still have big supermarkets, but I'd never really seen anything on the same scale as this. And in the supermarkets, things are really different. So they're really nicely laid out. To be fair, in the UK, it varies, right? Like, I think Morrison's is really nicely laid out in the UK. But I'm not such a big fan of Sainsbury's or Lidl. I think they're hectic. Obviously, Lidl's a German store anyway. So Lidl's are going to be the same in France as they are in Britain. But in the supermarkets, there are some things that are very different. So to begin with, meat is really, really, really cheap in France. Meat is much cheaper in France than the UK. You can get really good quality, thick steaks quite cheap in France when you won't in Britain. So steak for me really became affordable when I lived there. While in the UK, I would never really buy steaks regularly just because of the price. Like, you can buy an entire side of salmon for like 10 euros, or you can buy like a big thick steak for like 4 to 5 euros, while in the UK it's like £7 just for a sirloin steak that's not even as big as the French one. So yeah, it really, really became quite affordable. The other thing, as a small thing, is squash. So in the UK we have lots of squash, apple squash, orange squash, Ribena, and it's kind of the same consistency as water. And in France they don't have squash at all. But what they do have is they have these syrups. And these syrups are like a really thick sort of mixture that you mix with water, but they come in crazy, wacky flavors. Like, we've had banana and kiwi, we had raspberry, cherry, you can get mint flavor, you can get any flavor. Like, there's dozens and dozens and dozens of flavor in every supermarket. And I thought that was really cool. I love the syrups in France. So if you go to France, you get a French supermarkets, even the small ones, look for the syrups because they're really good and they really are a lot better quality than squash, I think. But they probably have more sugar as well, so keep that in mind if you care about that stuff. In terms of ice cream and milkshakes, this is something the UK does way better. So in most supermarkets in France, you get a very, very limited choice of ice cream flavors. Like, they have vanilla, chocolate, and maybe strawberry. But yeah, I never really saw anything else. There was never really banana. There was never any other crazy. They never have mint flavored ice creams. You might get a cornetto, but you're not going to get it in like a box. And there's really not a massive array of flavors. Even the massive hypermarkets, they don't have that many flavors of ice cream, and you're mostly going to be getting vanilla or chocolate. And that's pretty much it. While in the UK, we have mint choc chip, we can get raspberry, we can get banana, we can get mint flavour, we can get coffee, we can get a lot of fancy ice cream flavours. And I say, if you're French, feel free to leave in the comments if you disagree with this, but from my experience living in Paris, there was a very limited range of ice creams that you could get. Another thing that really frustrated me about French supermarkets, and French people don't get this, is the trolleys. The trolleys are absolutely horrendous. So in the UK, when you go into a shop, you get a trolley and you can move it in any direction, left, right, forward, backwards, whatever. And if someone's coming your way down a thin supermarket aisle, you just move to the left and the wheels will turn to the left. But in France, they don't have that. So in France, for some weird reason, they're like two-wheel drive. Only the front two wheels change direction. So you can't just move your trolley to the left if someone's blocking the way or if you're blocking the way. You have to literally lift your trolley and move it to the left. And if you've got a massive heavy trolley, you're not going to lift it. So yeah, you tend to get these like traffic queues in French supermarkets where people just can't really go round each other. Or you're always asking people, excuse me. While in the UK, you just go round them. But in France, you can't do that, and it's really, really weird, French trolleys. So I want to talk a little bit about the systems in France. So for one thing that I noticed, the trains are really weird. So in trains in France, they're different. They're not bad or worse, they're cool. So the trains in France, they get double-decker trains if you're above land. When I was in Paris, all the trains had 2 floors. You'd go in, and then they go down, and they go up. And it was really cool, actually. I quite liked that. And they're a lot more high-tech, like they have screens in all the trains and they have lights on the side that show you where it's stopping. And this doesn't really happen in the UK. You just get like a screen that tells you the next stop, or, you know, when they stop, the train man will say on the microphone where the next stop is and stuff. And in France, it's all done on screens with lights and stuff, and that's pretty cool. And the prices, so in France, everything is kind of socialist. We say in the UK that we're like kind of socialist because we have the NHS, but that's the extent of British socialism. Nothing else is like that at all. While in France, it really is. So in France, when you're living in Paris, for 750 euros per year, you can get unlimited train and bus travel anywhere you like in Paris. And because it's all run by the government, you can go on the trains and the buses, while in the UK, everything's run privately. So you can't ever get this sort of thing. And also in France, even though it's 750 euros, your employer will pay 50%. So really, for 375 euros, you get a whole year of unlimited train and bus travel. So you don't even need to own a car if you live in Paris. You don't need it. You really don't, because the public transport is so good and so cheap. While in London, you're going to be paying thousands and thousands of pounds for the same sort of service if you want to use like trains and buses all the time. So it's way more affordable when you're living in Paris. Another really weird thing about the trains in France, before I completely move on. So the trains in France are kind of weird because you can actually open the doors before the train fully stops, which is really weird because in the UK, train doors do not open until I think the conductor opens them. But in France, they can open while the train's still moving at like 15 miles an hour or something, like it's still coming in to stop, and you can just open the doors and hop out, which is really crazy, but it's kind of fun. Another thing is the parks in France. So from my experience living in the UK, I've lived on the Isle of Wight, I've lived in Birmingham, I've lived in Portsmouth. All the parks are kind of plain. Like, you've got a few flowers and you've got grass and trees, but that's about it. But in France, the parks are really, 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 really nice and really maintained. They have beautiful flower arrangements, like everything is designed by the state, but it looks really nice generally. And they're clean and maintained. They send litter pickers and, you know, regularly it's cleaned up and kept looking good. While in the UK, that tends not to happen, and it's kind of down to the community to look after their own parks. There's lots of parks I see that are overgrown and the grass hasn't been cut and stuff, but in France, this never happens. The parks are really well maintained. Oh, on the train note, I completely forgot about this. This is like horrendous. So in London, the trains are kind of busy and old and horrible, but they weren't as bad. I have to admit, like, the trains, when you go to the underground in Paris, it's bad. So not only is there like full of homeless people that live in there, but it stinks of piss. Like everywhere you go in Paris, if you go to a big train station in Paris, it absolutely reeks of urine. Like it's almost overpowering. So there's 2 other small things that I was thinking about. So one thing that you notice is the pavements are absolutely tiny, or for Americans, sidewalks. So in France, pavements are absolutely tiny. When I was with my girlfriend in France, we literally couldn't actually walk on the same pavement while holding hands sometimes because the pavement was so small. And I was like, oh my God, imagine if there was a fat person trying to walk down this pavement. Like legit, you could not. They were so thin. It is crazy. I'll try and add some pictures, but like it's so crazy. Pavements are really thin. And not only that, but the people who design them are crazy because they put like streetlights in the middle of the pavement. So literally, like it's almost impossible to go around them because they have this tiny pavement and then they have like a lamppost in the middle of the pavement. And it's like, how are you meant to walk around this? If there was a woman with like a buggy with a child, she wouldn't be able to go on the pavement. She'd have to go on the road and go around it or walk on the edge of the road. It's mad. And the last thing on driving is roundabouts. Like in France, I kid you not, there were roundabouts off of roundabouts off of roundabouts. It's absolutely mad. And I don't know if it's true, but I once heard a statistic that there are 70% of the world's roundabouts just in France, which is an absolutely insane amount when you think about it, that like the majority of all the roundabouts in the world are in France. Obviously in America they have cross sections. We have roundabouts in the UK, but not nearly as many. But in France, I'm not kidding, roundabouts off of roundabouts off of roundabouts. Yeah. But generally, if you're looking to be a tourist in France, or if you're looking to live in France, it is a really interesting country, and the food is really good. You will love the food. There are definitely going to be things that you're going to miss. There are things that you're going to be like, oh, I wish I had this. But there are going to be new things that you find there that you don't have in your own country that you're like, oh my God, this is really good. And generally, yeah, as a tourist, it's obviously fine. Go to all the tourist areas and enjoy tourist things. Something I would definitely say is it's really, really, if you're able to do it, it's so worth meeting an actual French family or real French people. And if you're going to France, try and get some French people to do things with you, because it's so good to see things as local people see it. And obviously when I lived there, I obviously met quite a lot of French people. I've probably got almost 20 French friends now. I've got quite a large network in France now, which is really nice. But it's just so good to meet the French people and enjoy things that are different. You shouldn't really focus on what you haven't got, because you've got loads of new things that are going to be really great and really fun to try. But yeah, overall, France is a fascinating, interesting country. I really enjoyed my time in France, and there are some really, really good things about France. I could have made this video longer, but I was trying to keep it short. So I really hope you found this video helpful. So I've started to switch all of my videos from gaming-related videos to vlogging and travel-related videos. For those of you who don't know, I've lived in France for 2 years now. I'm back in the UK at the moment, but very shortly I'm going to be going to China. I'm working as a teacher in China. I'm going to be traveling the whole of China, and I'm going to be going to other countries as well. So I really want to start making travel-related videos of the places that I go. So that's what I'm going to be focusing on with this channel in future. So if you're interested in travel-related videos, both with France and with China, and other countries in the future as well, hopefully, then please make sure to subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment, and join the Discord, because that is the most effective way for you to get hold of me. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you found this video entertaining, and I hope to see you guys in the next one.